Discover how a janitor's incredible act transformed the life of a millionaire's daughter in 30 days. Jake swayed the mop across the hall floor, the rhythmic swish echoing in the otherwise hushed space of Jefferson High. At 27, his life revolved around supporting his ailing mother, and the mundane task of cleaning the very halls where the elite mingled only added to his sense of determination. Each polished tile gleamed under the fluorescent lights as Jake poured his heart into every stroke, even if it went unnoticed by the entitled students who sauntered by like royalty. But every day he greeted them with a warm smile, knowing the burdens he carried were like weights on his shoulders, steeling him for another day in the fray. Among those privileged students, Sarah, the millionaire's daughter, walked aimlessly through her gilded cage. At 17, with a fortune that meant nothing compared to the love she lacked, she felt suffocated by her father's expectations and the polished facade of an elite social life. Beneath her designer clothes and perfect makeup was a lonely girl in search of meaning, battling whispers of inadequacy and rebellion. As the seasons turned, a tragic twist of fate struck the affluent world of Jefferson High. A wave of grief washed over Sarah when her father passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind a volatile world of pent-up turmoil. In the midst of packing up his now deserted office, she stumbled upon Jake, diligently cleaning as if the physical act could somehow drown out the pain that loomed heavy in the air. Their eyes met. Jake, caught off guard, instantly saw the pain etched into Sarah's face. There, amidst stacks of paperwork and memories, she found someone who didn't just see her as the daughter of a millionaire, but rather as a person struggling with loss. It was their first connection, two souls inexplicably drawn together by shared adversity, an unspoken understanding wrapped in hardship. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they shared stories, their bond deepened. Sarah didn't just see Jake's role as a janitor anymore, she recognized the respect he held for his work, his dedication unwavering even in the face of struggle. The more she learned, the more she found herself questioning the arrogance of her former life. After their shared moments, guilt nudged at her conscience. When a community service project spotlighted Jake's quiet but resolute impact on underprivileged students, the stakes soared. Would she leverage her father's legacy to uplift him, or remain shackled by elitism? Just as the school prepared for a fundraiser to celebrate diversity, tension surged. Sarah faced opposition from her peers as they scoffed at the thought of a janitor receiving recognition. As she rallied her fellow students to support Jake, the atmosphere thickened with chaos. The festival, set to bridge gaps, became a battleground of prejudice. Jake, witnessing the fracture forming between them, felt his heart sink. How could one grand gesture turn into a threat, tearing apart what held such promise? Doubts surfaced as the eyes of society watched on, waiting for their verdict. At that fateful moment, the truth bubbled to the surface. Could Sarah withstand the judgment of her peers while safeguarding the dignity of a friendship that had transformed her life? As Jake looked beyond the swirling crowd, uncertainty washed over him. Would their connection endure the harsh scrutiny of opposing worlds? The question hung palpably in the air, both daunting and hope-filled, ready to plunge them into a reckoning. Neither could foresee. Sarah stood at the edge of the crowd, heart racing as whispers swirled around her. Each judgmental glance felt like daggers, and the laughter that erupted from familiar faces cut deep. They were supposed to be her friends, yet here they stood, belittling the one person who had shown her a glimpse of authenticity in a life filled with shadows. Jake wiped his brow, adjusting his grip on the mop. He felt the mounting tension like a heavy weight on his shoulders. He had always known the hierarchy at Jefferson High. The flashing moments of publicity and privilege danced in the eyes of students. But for the first time, Jake was part of something bigger than himself, even if it was being fought against. He felt an unexpected surge of pride as his efforts were recognized, but that pride quickly morphed into fear. What if this spotlight only magnified the gap between him and Sarah? Why are you doing this? A voice shouted from the crowd, breaking through the silence. It was Ben, the unofficial leader of the elite group, known for his sharp remarks and sharper smiles. He stepped forward, arms crossed, looking straight at Sarah. A janitor? For real? What's next, a pet rock? Anger flared within Sarah as she clenched her fists. Jake had become her anchor, someone who listened without judgment, and now he was being unfairly criticized. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words got tangled in the knot of emotion swirling inside her. Then she remembered the stories they had shared, the struggles of his family, the dreams that had been buried beneath layers of necessity, and the courage it took to rise each day to face an indifferent world. Jake wasn't just a janitor. He was a fighter, and so was she. She had to speak up. No, Sarah said, her voice surprisingly steady, cutting through the doubt that clouded her heart, you don't understand. Jake has given more to this school than most of us ever will. He inspires those around him without expecting anything in return. That's what it means to make a difference. The crowd murmured, surprised by the passion in her voice. It was a shift, a crack in their armor of cruelty. For a brief moment, Ben faltered. Come on, Sarah. He's not one of us. He retorted, though the confidence in his statement wavered. Doubt crept into the audience, faces flickering between old loyalties and newfound revelations. Jake could hardly breathe as he realized what was happening. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about the bridge Sarah was building between their worlds. But still, anxiety gnawed at him. What if the moment collapsed under the weight of prejudice? Why do you care so much? Another voice piped up, seeking to erode her newfound resolve. Because he cares about us. Sarah shot back, her voice firm. He deserves a chance. He's human, just like us. With each word, Sarah felt a flicker of liberation. Could it be possible that she was finally breaking free from the chains of expectation laid by her father, the social elite? The crowd continued to stir as uncertainty bloomed around them, hanging above their heads like impending rain. Across the room, Jake felt hope bloom in a place he never thought it would. Yet, beneath that flicker of hope, fear lingered like an unwelcome shadow, and he wondered, if Sarah's voice could unite them, what would happen when the dust settled? As the tension in the air thickened, a wave of realization washed over the students. They watched Sarah standing firm, her eyes ablaze with a fierce determination to redefine their future. But would they follow her lead or retreat back to their comfortable ignorance? The resolution of this moment could change everything, and as it hovered above them like a storm cloud, the urgency of the choice resonated deep within every heart present. Could this be the moment they finally chose connection over division? Sarah's heart raced as she faced the questioning eyes of her peers. The murmurs seemed to wrap around her, binding her in a moment that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Would they understand? Would they see the truth of who Jake was, beyond the uniform and the broom? She swallowed hard, steeling herself against Ben's challenging stare. Look, she continued, her voice rising, we've all been through struggles, privileged or not. And it doesn't matter what you wear or where you come from. What matters is character, kindness, and Jake embodies that more than anyone here. A ripple of disbelief pulsed through the crowd, but some faces softened, searching for something they had long buried under laughter and ambition. Jake stood still, processing Sarah's words. Each compliment she directed at him slowly chipped away at the walls he had built around his insecurities. Character, huh? Ben scoffed, clearly unready to back down. You think a few sweet words are going to change our world? Get real, Sarah. This is the way it is. I don't believe that. Sarah shouted back, the conviction in her stance igniting others nearby. We can change it if we care enough. We can create something better, together. Angry murmurs started to fade into thoughtful silence. Students exchanged glances, weighing their options. It was a pivotal moment, and a strange energy crackled in the air. They had come here expecting the usual banter and disdain but had found themselves face to face with an unexpected challenge. Reflections passed among the crowd, glimpses of the times they had felt alone, unheard, or judged. Someone took a step forward, a girl from the back, her brow slightly furrowed. What if we really could? What if we weren't just meant to be on one side or the other? That's what I'm saying. Sarah pressed on, encouraged by the small spark she saw igniting in her classmates. We can lift each other up, despite our differences. Jake proves that we can all make a difference. Let us stand up for him, for each other. After a slight pause, a boy shouted, "Yeah. We should support everyone in our community." The energy in the crowd shifted, hope beginning to permeate the silence that once pulsed with disdain. Jake's chest tightened as he absorbed the shift in atmosphere. He saw their eyes land on him not as just a janitor, but as a beacon of change. "You really don't have to," he started, half wanting to shrink away from the spotlight Sarah had thrust upon him. "Let them talk, Jake," Sarah encouraged gently, catching his eye. "This is your moment, too." Just then, behind Ben, a figure stepped out from the shadows. Mia, her former best friend, who had always effortlessly navigated the social ladder. A different expression colored Mia's face this time. It was something softer, more genuine. "I remember you helping with the food drive last year. I saw how hard you worked. Everyone talked about it, Jake. You didn't just clean, you cared." Whispers of agreement flowed through the crowd, and Ben's defiance began to waver as he struggled to keep control. "You might not wear the label we think is important, but you're somebody," Mia continued, her voice rising with newfound conviction. "And we respect you." The crowd erupted, voices mixing as people gave in to the moment, a cacophony of uncertain laughter and genuine applause. A rush of disbelief and hope coursed through Sarah as she watched the tide shift, amplifying her own resolve. Yet, even with the tide turning, a question gnawed at Jake. How long would this newfound unity last? Would they regret this moment later and revert back to their old habits? As the cheers faded, someone in the back shouted, "Let us make this change real. Let us start a movement." Yet, hidden beneath the applause, Jake felt a pit of worry settle deep in his stomach. He turned to Sarah, meeting her eyes. "What now?" he whispered, a silent plea for guidance in the storm they had stirred. With the crowd still buzzing with energy, Sarah looked back at Jake, her expression fierce but uncertain. "Now," she said, "we make sure it doesn't end here." The weight of that promise hung in the air, heavy with possibility, as all eyes turned to them. Would they seize the moment, or would it slip away like everything else? The air was charged with potential, and decisions awaited just beyond the horizon of what they thought they knew. The noise around them began to dim, and Sarah could feel the energy shifting into something more profound. The crowd was watching, waiting, their collective breath held tight. She clenched her fists, knowing this was a crucial fork in the road. They could either move forward together or slip back into old routines. She cleared her throat, the weight of the moment hanging heavily on her. "Everyone here knows or has witnessed something unfair, something that cut deep," she began, her voice gaining strength. "We've all felt the weight of judgment and expectations, whether it's from peers or families. Jake's here to remind us we can break free from that if we choose to care." A flicker of recognition glinted in the eyes of those present. Sarah controlled her breathing, allowing the silence to grow tense with possibility. "We can start a real movement, one of kindness, of community. It starts with us, right here, right now." Jake could hardly believe his ears. His heart pounded, and for the briefest moment, hope flickered within him. But another thought battled for ground, the panic lurking beneath the hopeful layers. Would he be able to stand firm as this growth took root? Did he deserve this spotlight? Suddenly, Ben shouted, his voice cutting through the reverie. "What do you think we are, some kind of charity project? This is just so lame. You think a hug and a few words change anything?" He laughed, the sound dry and bitter. Jake felt a surge of warmth, a dragon's breath stoking the embers of fear. Sarah kept her eyes on Jake for a flicker of courage, then turned back to face Ben with steely resolve. "No, Ben, we're not a charity. We're a community. And communities don't thrive by tearing each other down or pretending we don't exist." A ripple of agreement swept through the crowd again. Jake strained to meet the gazes in front of him, yearning for validation, but also fearing it. Would they truly stand behind him? What if he couldn't live up to their expectations? Seeing the unease in Jake's expression, Sarah took a step closer, lowering her voice but making sure he heard her. "You're not alone, Jake. We're all in this together. Just look at them. Look at how they're responding." Jake finally turned to the sea of faces, seeing the flickers of hope and belief lighting up across each one of them. There was a new energy, a promise that things could change if they sought to understand one another, and he could feel it tugging at him. Someone else shouted, "Yeah. It's time to rally together." Jake took a deep breath, the air suddenly tasting of potential and transformation. "Okay," he murmured, the weight of those few syllables feeling like a gateway. "Okay, let us do it." As Sarah and Jake shared a glance, the crowd erupted into a mix of cheers and excitement, ready to take the plunge together. The fear that had held Jake captive began to dissolve within the swell of camaraderie. There was something about being lifted in a community that fractured his insecurities. "We can organize events," Sarah jumped into action, her enthusiasm infectious. "We can create platforms where everyone feels seen, where every voice matters. We need allies, volunteers. Let us bring our stories together." The crowd murmured in awe at the possibilities. Yet hovering above was the tension of uncertainty. Would they all truly contribute? Would they show up when it mattered? Even as ideas whirled around them like leaves in a gust of wind, Jake couldn't shake a lingering doubt. "Are we really ready for this?" he asked quietly, turning back to Sarah. Just then, the fire alarm blared, jolting them out of the moment. Students began to panic as the wail echoed through the hallways, the alarm cutting through their revelry like a knife. "What's happening?" Ben shouted, pushing against the crowd, trying to escape. As chaos enveloped them, Jake looked to Sarah. In that briefest of seconds, he understood. Whatever happened next, they were not backing down. But as they fled the building, racing against time and uncertainty, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. Something dangerous. What would they find outside amid the storm they had stirred? And as they surged toward the exit, the question loomed large: could their newfound unity survive the challenges already on the brink? The roar of the fire alarm faded into a haunting echo as the students streamed out of the building. Jake and Sarah dashed toward the nearest exit, adrenaline coursing through their veins like wildfire. With every hurried step, the chaotic crowd shoved past them, churning the air thick with fear and confusion. "Stay together!" Sarah shouted, her voice barely piercing through the rising panic. She grabbed Jake's arm, pulling him closer as they squeezed through the throng. They burst onto the school's front lawn, the cool evening air hitting them like a splash of cold water. Students gathered in scattered clusters, faces painted with anxiety as they glanced back toward the building. Some were crying, others shouting for their friends. But in the midst of the chaos, a strange sense of unity surged among the pupils. Strangers began to huddle together, exchanging uneasy assurances. "Jake!" A familiar voice cut through the noise. It was Mia, a classmate who had often overlooked Jake in the hallways. Her eyes were wide with concern, and her presence felt both unexpected and grounding in all the tumult. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I think so, just shocked," Jake replied, running a hand through his hair in a futile attempt to catch his breath. The fire alarm had wrung them out of a moment of potential. A glimmer of hope was snuffed out without warning. He glanced at Sarah, who was shaking but resolute. "Let us take a moment here." She turned to the group gathering around, now drawn to each other like moths to a flame. "Everyone, let us check in. Are we all safe?" The crowd echoed her call, voices rising and mingling as they began to assess the situation. One student had injuries from a fall, and others rushed to help him, managing to turn initial panic into an act of support. With every act of kindness, Jake's heart raced. This was the change they dreamed of, but would it hold when the dust settled? "Do you think we should find out what happened?" Jake asked, glancing back at the darkened entrance of the school, smoke beginning to curl into the cool air from above. "Maybe, but I don't want anyone to go back in yet," Sarah replied, her expression serious. "We just need to be here for each other right now." "Right." Someone else piped up. "Let us start organizing everyone. We can connect, see if all of our friends made it out, and if anyone needs help, we can figure it out together." Jake's spirit began to lift as more and more voices chimed in, evolving from shaky rumors of danger to collective determination. They were flooded with the warmth of community rising stronger than his apprehensions, and he felt propelled to help. Maybe, just maybe, this moment could solidify their budding unity. Yet, a flicker of anxieties lingered at the back of his mind. This surge of camaraderie couldn't just evaporate. Could they maintain these connections when fear wasn't drawing them together? As they shared plans and reassurances, Jake caught sight of Ben at the edge of the crowd, standing awkwardly. His face, usually twisted with cynicism, was now unreadable. Jake hesitated. He could sense a shift in Ben, a potential for a different kind of conversation. The ground felt shaky beneath his feet, but something vital stirred within him. Maybe he could reach out. Maybe this was not just about solidarity but about understanding. Without thinking, Jake stepped toward Ben, his heart pounding anew. "Hey, Ben," he began, unsure of how this might roll out. But before he could finish, the front doors burst open again, and out stepped a figure draped in smoke, the janitor, Mr. Roberts, who often went unnoticed in the hustle. His expression, calm amidst the chaos, held an air of authority. He carried something small in his hands. And as silence fell over the group, all eyes turned to the man who had witnessed their struggles without them even being aware. With a weary smile, he began to speak, his voice resonating even above the still howling alarm. "Listen carefully, everyone." Jake's breath hitched. What would Mr. Roberts say? And how might his words change everything from here on out? "Listen carefully, everyone." Mr. Roberts' voice boomed across the gathering of anxious teenagers. It had a steady cadence that broke the chaotic tension, pulling their wide-eyed stares toward him. Jake stood frozen, caught between relief and anticipation. Had Mr. Roberts known something that could help them navigate this panic? The crowd shifted, inching closer as curiosity sparked in their hearts. "I know this is a terrifying moment," Mr. Roberts continued, glancing at the smoking entrance, "but we need to stay calm and think clearly. Emergency services have been alerted. What's most important is that you all support each other." Someone from the back scoffed, "Support each other? What if the building?" That tone of disbelief resonated with a few others, but Mr. Roberts didn't falter. He raised his hand, calling for silence. "I've been here longer than most of you have been alive," he said, his voice softer now, but firm. "I've cleaned this school through joys and sorrows, witnessed friendships bloom and fray. One thing I've learned is that when fear creeps in, so does the real test of our character." Jake felt his chest tighten. Mr. Roberts was right. They had seen each other in passing but never grasped the depth of their shared experience until this moment. The realization swept over him, warming him against the fear that threatened to seep into their hearts. "Look around you," Mr. Roberts continued, sweeping his gaze across the cluster of students. "See the faces of your classmates? Together, you are stronger than any smoke or clash you face. Right now is the moment to be there for one another." In the hush that followed, Jake's heartbeat synced to Mr. Roberts' words. He turned to look at Ben, and for the first time, he saw something resembling clarity in his eyes. Maybe Mr. Roberts' unpretentious wisdom was reaching him too. "Does that make sense?" Mr. Roberts asked. "We're all in this together. So let us help one another out, find our friends, and check if anyone's hurt. Let us focus on what we can control, our support for each other. Suddenly, there was an outpouring of agreement. Students nodded, murmuring reassurances. Jake felt a surge of commitment, as if the need to check on everyone felt like a calling. Sarah quickly organized a group to tend to the injured student, while others formed a line to share names and confirm everyone was accounted for. Something shifted in Jake. The realization that they weren't just students anymore but part of something greater filled him with purpose. "Hey," he said, stepping closer to Ben again, who stood nearby watching the others engage. "Do you want to come with us? We could check on Mia and the others. I mean, we all go here, right? It feels important to stick together." Ben hesitated, then appeared to nod, as if the weight of doubt had lifted just a bit. "Yeah, let us do this," he replied. But as Jake turned to lead them deeper into the crowd, a commotion erupted at the school's entrance. Another figure stumbled out, laboring to push through the gathered students. The crowd shifted again, and as they parted, Jake sucked in his breath. It was Mia, but she didn't have her usual calm. Her face was ashen, and her trembling hands clutched tightly around a crumpled piece of paper. "Jake!" she called, her voice breaking. "You need to see this." Jake's heart raced. What had she found? What new storm was about to tear through their fragile moment of resolve? Mia rushed forward, her eyes darting with urgency as she pushed the crumpled paper towards Jake. He instinctively took a step back, absorbing her fear. It wasn't just the paper, it was the weight of something profound, the gravity of a truth that needed to be unveiled. "What is it?" Jake asked, forcing himself to keep his voice steady. Mia swallowed hard, the tension radiating off her. "It's a note. I found it on the ground near the science lab. Someone wrote this before we evacuated." She unfolded the paper, her fingers shaking slightly as she extended it towards him. Jake leaned closer to catch a glimpse, feeling the murmurs of worry from those around them begin to rise again. "What does it say?" Ben asked, peering over Jake's shoulder. Mia took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a warning about the fire and something more. It mentions something going wrong in the lab. Something they didn't want anyone to know about." Jake's stomach churned. What kind of something were they talking about? As he unfurled the paper fully, words began to emerge. "To whoever finds this, you need to be careful. The experiment was not supposed to go public. They'll blame anyone who gets too close, trust no one." A stunned silence fell over them. It felt like the flutter of wings had died, leaving only the weight of reality crashing down. "But who wrote this?" Ben asked, his brows knitted together. Mia shook her head, her expression darkening. "I don't know. But this could mean there are people here hiding things. Secrets we might not want to uncover." Jake felt a jolt of adrenaline. The panic bubbling within the crowd shifted focus. This was bigger than just a fire. There seemed to be a hidden danger lurking beneath the surface, a storm beyond the smoke. "Should we tell Mr. Roberts?" Jake suggested, his thoughts racing. "He needs to know that it's not just an accident." But Mia gripped his arm tightly. "No. Not yet. Not until we figure out who's behind this. If they wanted it covered up, then they might try to silence us too." The weight of her words sank in. They were standing on a precipice, with choices before them that could either ensure their safety or plunge them into a deeper darkness. But what if someone else is in danger? Ben interjected, his voice rising with concern. "We can't just ignore this." Jake looked around, the urgency of the moment igniting a fire within him that pushed aside his earlier fear. They had found purpose in supporting each other, but now they faced a challenge that could test their integrity. "Mia's right," Jake said, his voice steady. "We need to investigate. If someone is hiding something, the truth matters more than anything else right now. We can't be afraid to uncover it." The decision felt monumental. A subtle change flickered in the atmosphere, tension coiling like a spring. They were stepping out of the shadows into a light that could illuminate dark secrets. "I have a flashlight," Ben said, his hands rummaging through his backpack. "Let us go check that area together." As the three of them moved toward the shadows of the school, a collective shiver of unease closed around their group. There would be no turning back once they stepped into the unknown, but something deep within urged them forward, the need for truth, for justice, for each other. Then, from behind them, they heard a voice they did not expect. "What are you kids doing? You can't go back in there." Jake's heart dropped as he turned to find Mr. Roberts standing behind them, concern etched across his features. "Things are worse than you know." Jake exchanged a glance with Mia and Ben, the resolve now stronger than the fear they had felt just moments earlier. What endangered horizon lay before them? And with Mr. Roberts now questioning their intentions, would they find the answers they sought, or would they uncover something even more dangerous lurking in the smoke? "Jake, Mia, Ben," Mr. Roberts' voice was a low rumble, edged with an intensity that sent a chill down Jake's spine. "You need to listen to me. This isn't just a fire. It's complex. It's dangerous." "What do you mean?" Mia shot back, her voice breaking through the thickening tension. "You can't just stand there and expect us to walk away from this. We found a note that note could put you in even greater danger." Mr. Roberts interrupted, his eyes scanning their faces, realizing the weight of his own words. "I can't explain everything right now, but trust me when I say sometimes it's better to be in the shadows than out in the open." Jake felt a surge of frustration. The more Mr. Roberts spoke, the more questions filled his mind. Shadows? Secrets? It all felt like a terrible game where the rules kept changing. "But we can't just leave people in danger. What if someone else is hurt?" Mr. Roberts shifted uncomfortably. "And what if you end up being the next target?" His usually calm demeanor was now a storm brewed beneath the surface, eyes darkened with unspoken fears. "Do you know who wrote the note?" Ben interjected, his fingers clenched around the strap of his backpack, his brow furrowing. The spring in their tension wound tighter. "I can't tell you that," Mr. Roberts replied, a hint of desperation in his voice. "Not yet. But trust me, you need to stay out of it. I can handle this." Mia stepped forward, something fierce lighting in her eyes. "No. We're already involved. We can help. If you know something, you owe it to us to tell the truth." For a moment, silence stretched like a taut string ready to snap, and in that pause, Jake felt the gravity of their situation settle heavily. Beneath the fear, there was a strange sense of unity. Then Mr. Roberts took a deep breath, attempting to rein in his emotions. "Okay. But if you insist on getting involved, you need to promise me no matter what happens, stick together. No matter how scary it gets." "Together," Jake echoed, his throat tight. This was no longer just about curiosity or danger, it was about loyalty, about the string that bound them as friends. "Let us go then," Ben said, flicking the flashlight on and illuminating their path with a beam that cut through the dark. They moved past Mr. Roberts, uncertainty whispering through the air like an icy wind. Each step felt like a chord in a suspenseful play, the shadows threatening to consume them. Mia, who led the way, hesitated at the door to the science lab, her fingers hovering just above the handle. "Should we really be doing this?" she asked, glancing back. "We have to," Jake replied, steeling himself as he met her gaze. "For the truth." With a deep breath, Mia turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing the chaos of overturned lab equipment and scattered papers as if the room had been mid-experiment when everything went wrong. The air felt electric, charged with secrets yet to be uncovered. They stepped inside, the beam of Ben's flashlight searching every corner like an eager detective. "Look," Ben said suddenly, pointing towards a shadowy figure in the corner. Jake squinted, his heart racing. It looked like a lab coat, crumpled and stained, lying beside something metallic that shimmered faintly in the dark. As they approached, Jake felt a tremor of trepidation ripple through him. What new mystery would they unravel here? And who could be lurking just outside the door? With a burst of courage, he reached out to lift the lab coat, bracing himself for whatever he might find. Would it be a clue to the truth they sought, or would it thrust them deeper into a web of danger? But just as he grasped the sleeve, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, sending them all reeling. What was that? Mia gasped, her eyes wide. Out of the chaos came a voice, sharp and commanding. You shouldn't be here. Get out. Now. Heart pounding, Jake turned to see not just Mr. Roberts, but someone else on the fringes of the darkness, a figure that made him freeze. Who was this new threat? And did they have the answers to the questions that were consuming them? Jake knew one thing. There was no turning back now. Jake's heart thundered in his chest as he took in the looming figure. There was an authority about him, something unsettling that made Jake want to retreat, but he stood firm. The outline of the figure sharpened under the weak beam of Ben's flashlight. Who are you? Mia demanded, her voice steady, even though Jake could see the tension gripping her shoulders. Step away from that coat, the stranger said, his tone colder than the draft sweeping through the lab, laced with a hint of urgency that sent shivers down Jake's spine. The lab coat was still clutched in Jake's hands, heavy with unanswered questions. We're looking for answers, he replied, attempting to sound braver than he felt. That note, forget the note. The figure snapped, interrupting him. You're too deep into something you don't understand. A glint of recognition flashed in Mr. Roberts' eyes, an unyielding storm beginning to brew on his face. Stop this, he said, stepping protectively in front of the trio. They're involved now, whether you like it or not. Just tell them what they need to know. The stranger glanced from Mr. Roberts to the kids, weighing his options. The air grew thick with an unbearable silence, punctuated only by the soft rustling of papers that danced around the room. Fine, he relented, hands clenched into fists at his sides. But you're in this at your own risk. There are forces at play that are beyond your imagination, beyond the fire you saw. What do you mean? Ben interjected, his face pale but determined. What kind of forces? The man scanned the room, ensuring no one else was near. The kind that thrive in chaos. There's a reason that fire happened. It was a distraction, a cover. Jake's mind raced as he pieced the hints together. A cover for what? The figure hesitated, his breath hitching for a moment. A lab experimenting on human lives. They need to keep it under wraps. If you found that note, it means you're dangerously close to the truth. It felt as if the ground shifted beneath them, the walls of the lab beginning to close in. What did the note say? Jake asked, the words tumbling from his mouth. Something you shouldn't have read, came the sharp reply, cutting through the thick air. You're all marked now. It would be best if you walked away, for your own safety. You've awakened something that should have stayed asleep. Mia shook her head fiercely. You can't expect us to just walk away. People are in danger. We have to act now. Jake's voice rang out, cutting through her determination with a sudden firmness. He turned to her, his heart pounding not just from fear but from a deeper realization. What if we're already too entangled to run? What if we find a way to help? Mr. Roberts exchanged a glance with the stranger, and for a fleeting moment, Jake saw the glint of hope in Mr. Roberts' eyes. You might not be the only ones investigating, Mr. Roberts warned, his brow furrowed. There are others who do want to silence you. It's already too late for silence, the stranger interjected. You've chosen a dangerous path, and there's no turning back. But if you're going forward, you must be ready for anything. Questions swirled in Jake's mind. Each one was heavier than the last. What did this mean for them? Were they stepping into a war they had no understanding of? As they exchanged wary glances, Mia suddenly stepped closer, determination etched on her face. Then let us find the answers. Let us not be afraid. Jake felt something shift within him at her words. The exhilarating mix of fear and hope raced through him. Standing with his friends, he knew they'd face whatever lay ahead together. But just before he could voice his resolve, the door burst open, revealing the flickering lights from the hallway. A group of shadowy figures spilled in, and the voice he dreaded echoed back, deeper and more menacing. Did you really think you could uncover the truth? Panic surged. As Jake and the others exchanged horrified glances, one thought permeated his mind: how deep would they have to go to uncover the truth? And at what cost? Chaos enveloped them as shadows flitted across the room, the flickering lights illuminating the worry etched on each face. The realization that their journey for truth had now morphed into something threatening loomed heavily in the air. Jake felt cold sweat trickle down his spine, but he forced himself to stand taller, bolstered by the presence of Mia and Ben beside him. Stay back. The stranger growled, stepping in front of them, shielding the trio from the incoming threat. His voice boomed with an intensity that echoed, striking a chord of fear and determination in Jake's heart. Do you honestly believe you can simply walk away? The voice continued, sharp like a blade cutting through the thickening tension. The leader of the newcomers stepped forward, clad in dark clothing that spoke not only of authority but of danger. You've stumbled into something much larger than you can comprehend. Jake exchanged anxious glances with Mia and Ben. Their path had led them into a spiral of treachery, and there was no going back now. What do you want? Jake found his voice, steady despite the chaos swirling within. We want silence, the figure returned, his smirk sinister. You're not meant to know what happens behind these walls. No. People deserve to know. Mia interjected fiercely, her spirit igniting a spark of hope within Jake. And you think you are the saviors? The leader scoffed, advancing further into the room, towering over them. When you choose to dig deeper, you must be prepared for the fallout. As dread pooled in Jake's stomach, the stranger stepped forward again, his own stance fierce and defiant. You walk a dangerous road. But these kids, he gestured toward Jake, Mia, and Ben, have already chosen their fate. The atmosphere crackled with tension, palpable as hearts raced, but in that moment of impending doom, Jake felt a wave of unexpected courage swell within him. We won't back down, he declared, words rushing from his heart as clarity washed over him. We will find the truth. The group of figures paused, shadows flickering like disbelief in their eyes. Fools, the leader hissed, his dismissive tone clashing with the conviction that surrounded Jake, Mia, and Ben. You'll come to regret this. Maybe, he replied, adrenaline surging, but we'll stand together, and that makes us stronger. As the leader scowled, Jake's heart thudded against his ribs, each pulse fueling his conviction. Behind him, he heard the quiet resolve from Mia and Ben, their unified spirits grounding him. Let us move. The stranger urged, seizing the moment, and all at once the tension cut loose as they fled deeper into the chaos of the school. They rushed for hallways braided with smoke, ready to weave connections that could unravel the truth, a collective strength pulsing between them. In that frenzied flight, Jake spotted a door marked emergency access and urged his friends forward. The flickering light ahead beckoned like a promise of safety amidst impending uncertainty. They burst into an adjacent corridor, where breaths mingled in frantic gasps with the charged air, a symphony of resolve echoing against the walls. Out the back. The stranger prompted, guiding them toward the rear entrance. We need to regroup. The storm isn't over yet. As they raced across the threshold, sunlight burst over them, a stark contrast to the weighty darkness behind. Outside, the anxiety transformed into a defiant energy, their hearts pumping with newfound resolve. There! Mia exclaimed, pointing toward the parking lot where students were gathered, a mix of uncertainty and unity reflected across countless faces. We have allies. Together? Ben panted, eyebrows raised, incredulity reflecting the essence of their journey thus far. Together, Jake affirmed, his voice steady and confident now. They embarked on a journey toward truth, one that intertwined their destinies to a greater call for justice. As they moved back toward their peers, Jake knew deep down this was more than just a battle against shadows hiding in the past. It was about embracing collective change, turning whispers of fear into thunderous roars of unity. The crowd's energy morphed as they saw the resolve in Jake, Mia, and Ben. They gathered around in solidarity, capturing every thread of courage spun from the chaos. "We need to talk," Jake shouted, his voice breaking through the clamor that encircles them. "We're on the brink of uncovering something that affects us all." Murmurs built up like a wave, rippling through the crowd as fear began to dissipate under the warmth of connection. In that moment, Jake felt a surge of pride wash over him. This community had awakened. Suddenly, Mr. Roberts stepped forward, his face serious. "You've stirred something powerful today. We need to be strong, united in what we uncover but also cautious. People will fight to keep it hidden." Jake nodded, understanding the weight of the challenge that lay ahead. "And we'll do it together." Applause and shouts erupted around them, the students cheering not just for Jake or his friends, but for the chance to stand together, to lift each other, and embrace their collective fight for truth. Jake took a breath, realizing that while they had faced darkness, it was the light of unity that would guide them now. This was their moment, a transformation ignited, where every soul united in purpose could create an unstoppable force. "Let us do this," Mia exclaimed, raising her hands triumphantly, energizing the stragglers now drawn into their current of hope. And as resolve surged between them, a palpable shift ignited in that collective energy, the dawn of a new beginning where courage triumphed, and the whispers of change grew thunderous. They wouldn't allow fear to silence their voices any longer. Together, they would unveil the truth, and one truth stood glaring: love, compassion, and unity would always outshine the darkest of shadows. This was just the beginning of a journey, and as they began to organize, Jake felt deep within his heart that they could shift the course of their futures forever. If you feel inspired by Jake, Mia, and Ben's journey or want to share in the excitement of their transformations, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share your reactions and feelings about the ending in the comments. And remember, share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation together. We can spark more change. Let us keep the momentum rolling.